Narayanam namaskritam naram chaiva narottamam devim sarasatyam vyasam tato jayodhira. Niste prayasho bhadreshu nityam bhagavata seva bhagavati utamashoki bhaktir bhavati naistiki. Nigamal kalparurugaritam param shukam makaramrita jovisamyatam pibata bhagavatam rasamarayam ahora horusika bhubakaham. Krishna swadama bhagate dhammagyaneh karunastadri samasho paranako dunoditaham. Ramapiyadavishuddha vishuddham vivu samyapiyadena vidam vidiksanam pragyahiduhu maharidam sanklesha nirvanam vasanti nanyataham. Om Ganati Marandasya Ganagana Sanakya Chaksurun Minitam Yanatashmai Sri Gurave Sri Chaitanya Manubhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutane Swayam Rupa Karamayam Darati Swaparantikam Vandeham Siguru Siyata Parakamanam Shigurun Vaishnavam Sirupam Sagadaram Sahagana Raganatam Vitam Stam Sadevam Sadvaitam Sabadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Paran Sahagana Lalita Jivishyakan Vitam Cham Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pastaya Bhutare Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tinamani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pachari Nirvisheswanyamari Praskada Desarani Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Good morning one and all. Welcome to Transcendental Tuesday. Chris Castro Vaibhavi Ram Kishore, thank you so much for joining us as we come to you from Spanish Fork, Utah. Ram Kishore's already got 3 comments in right out of the starting blocks. So we're getting that interactivity. Appreciate it. Rob's coming on board here on our co-partner, co-Zoom partner. I know Jean, welcome. I know that Lakshmi cooks for his deities on Tuesdays, so whether he'll be part of the discussion or not remains to be seen, but I would venture to guess he'll come on board for the kirtan, which is always a nice way to end the program. There's no better way, in fact, to end the program. Good morning, Jimmy and Taruni. Welcome to Transcendental Tuesday. We have a volunteer here from Los Angeles. His name is Paul Kim. And good morning, Raleigh. He's been working hard on a Patreon page. It's up and running. I think it's patreon.com/Utah Krishnas if you want to check it out. I'll put it in the comment section at the end. But Patreon members, and many of you have been generous already, so it's up to you. But he sends out a new MP3 which is edited along with a transcript every Monday for certain levels of membership. Another level of membership is get to spend a week free of charge at the Transcendental Spanish Fork Krishna Temple any week of your choosing per annum for a certain level of patronage or membership. A basic level gets you a Bhakti Guided magazine, and I'm already sending several of you Bhakti Guideds because of your generosity in the past. So anyway, we'll be mentioning it from time to time as a resource for those who want to get more intimate teachings, more intimate association. It'll also benefit me as well to get more of your intimate association as well. And speaking of intimacy, feel free to comment. Yesterday we didn't have our queen commenter, Anjali. She probably listened to some other class. Ram Kishore says he has a business call at 9 a.m., so he's going to have to knock out, but he's getting his comments in early, which we appreciate. Sundari Priya, Yudha, Omkar, a whole bunch of people are just jumping on right now. We appreciate you. Okay, we have an interesting announcement, and that is that I think we're doing something unprecedented today. We've spent 3 sessions, 4, 5, 6 sessions on verses in the past. Today is our 8th session on this verse, these 2 verses, 17th and 18th verses in the 4th chapter, the 1st canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. This will be our 8th verse, which means today we've discussed this single verse for a total of 6 hours. And we're going to continue today, possibly even tomorrow. Depends on whether we exhaust the the nectar which is contained within this flower-like verse. I won't even read the verse again. You probably got it committed to memory now. But the gist of the verse is, Vyasadeva is previewing with his Trikala, his ability to see past, present, and future as a pure devotee of the Lord in a literary incarnation of Lord. He's looking ahead. He's on the cusp from Dwarka. He's transitioning to Kali. He's looking ahead, and he's seeing the deterioration of everything material. He's seeing that in this age, people will be faithless for the most part. They'll be reduced in duration of life from the 1,000 years that they had in the past age to 100 years at most in this current age. They will be impatient. They will not be patient, because you can only be patient for something you want, and achieving and going after something you really, really want. Then and then only can you be patient. But if you don't value spiritual realization, spiritual knowledge, then we see impatience manifest. If I can't get it right away, well, heck with it. It's like the fox that jumped up, couldn't quite reach the grapes. So he then walked away, and he said the grapes are probably sour anyway. So we're too impatient. We want everything now. We want fast food. We want fast entertainment. We have fast cars, fast internet. We want fast spiritual realization. We don't have the patience to invest in the mature fruit of love of God or spiritual realization. So then we walk away and we say the fruits are sour. So Vyasadeva was trying to figure out how he could benefit the fallen people in this particular age. And then we come to the story of Paranjana. Paranjana, we talked about his city of 9 gates, his body being destroyed by the effects of time, by the soldiers of Chandravega. Prash Vajra, the fire which burns the city, is the fever that overcomes us at the time of death. And in all of this, what rises to the forefront of his consciousness is not the lotus feet of Krishna, which means his life has not been spent in the most profitable way it could have. What rises to the forefront of his thoughts is described in the 21st verse, 28th chapter, the 4th canto. Katam nu durakadina duakaravaru patishante maya kares dinam navmi vadado. What he's thinking about as I pass from this world, what he's thinking about is not his own spiritual well-being, his own spiritual journey, his own spiritual progress. He's not looking forward at all. He's looking back over his shoulder at his wife, primarily, his children, his grandchildren, and all those relatives from whose midst he is now being torn away. And his thoughts are, how will my sons and daughters, who are now fully dependent upon me, live and continue their lives? Their position will be similar to that of passengers aboard a ship wrecked in the midst of the ocean. Now, I think it's safe to assume that it's been a while since Paranjana has been an earner, since he has been a factor in the maintenance and provision of his family. Most likely, death is preceded, in the vast majority of cases, by at least 2 or 3 years of invalidity, during which time the dying person cannot work, cannot contribute in any meaningful way. In fact, just the opposite. The family members have to pitch in and care for his needs. If they don't want to do that personally, then they put him in an assisted living facility, which costs a lot of money. But either way, the man of the house, who's no longer strong and fit for going out working and putting bread on the table, becomes a burden. And yet, he's not thinking as a burden. He's thinking, how will they maintain their lives without me? And they're probably thinking, better. Better. You know, he was good. He was an asset when he was younger and virile, and he could work and give us our salaries and our allowances and pay our tuition at expensive universities, give us a car. He was good. Dad was the best, but right now he's just like our responsibility, a burden. But he's thinking just the opposite. Okay, what he says in the Bhagavad Gita, yam yam vapishmaram vaptyajityan yapriyajishaman yati natitisham syam. Whatever one's thinking at the time of death, that will predicate one's body in the next life. Just like the air carries aromas. From a rose garden, it carries a very sweet fragrance, and from a garbage pit, it carries a very pungent aroma. So what is it that's foremost in the mind of Paranjana at the time of leaving his body? And it is thoughts of his wife. She served him so nicely. When he was irritable, she didn't go tit for tat with him. She simply put her head down and she took the abuse. And for that, he became very ingratiated and even more attached to her. He thought back about all the ways that she'd served him, the times she'd presented him his clothes, all nicely washed and ironed, the meals that she'd cooked for him, the soft timbre of her voice, talking sweetly like birds chirping in trees in springtime, the touch of her soft skin, the sensuality, the consummation of their relationship, how good a mother she was. And he was bound up hand and foot by thoughts about his wife. And so, not surprisingly, he took the birth of a woman in his next life. Now, we're here in Mormon, Utah, and I've gleaned some things about the LDS philosophy. And one of them is they believe that if you have whatever your gender is now, you'll have that same gender in the spiritual world. In other words, if you're a male here, your purified spiritual resurrected body will be male. If you're female, your purified spiritual resurrected body will be female. But we don't ascribe to that belief. We believe that you take a body according to your karma, and what to speak of your liberated, resurrected, so to speak, spiritual body. Even in the next life, it is possible. What to speak of the next life? It's not uncommon at all to change your gender in this life. It's a huge industry now. Sex change operations. If you were born a man, you could change into a woman even in this life. Or if you're born a woman, you could change into a man, or sort of, in this life. What to speak of the next life? So change of gender is happening all the time, and it depends upon one's consciousness. Rishabde is nonam pramata kurite vikarma yat indriya pritamini nasara maneyatarum asana padikeshadasha. However your consciousness is colored, whatever it is that you're attached to, and whatever gives you the most pleasure, that's going to bubble up to the surface at the time of death. And then just like the air carries the aromas, and it can carry the aroma a distance to a different location altogether. So similarly, whatever our consciousness is at the time of death carries, the gross body stays behind, but the subtle body, the psychic body, what Lobsang Rampa used to call the astral body, carries the soul, just like the air carries aromas, into another family or another womb, or it could be an egg or a shell, who knows. One is not guaranteed to take human form of life unless one has practiced God consciousness and honored the Lord in their lives. In that case, one avoids having to sink down into a subhuman form of life. Otherwise, it could be in any species of life that one finds oneself after leaving the current body. Where did Paranjana find himself? He found himself taking birth as a female in the family of King Vidarbha. The king of Vidarbha had a child. The child was female. He named the child Vidarbi, and that Vidarbi had been Paranjana, a male in his past life, and in this life he was a female. What happened was his father, her father, I got to keep the gender straight here, her father arranged her marriage to a very, very honest, upright, Krishna conscious king named Malyabhaja. They lived a wonderful life. They produced 12 children between the two of them. Then Malyabhaja decided to retire. Do what Paranjana had not done in her past life. In the past life, Paranjana just hung on to kith and kin. to the last fag end. Malayavaja is a better class of man. And so he voluntarily walks away from his throne, walks away from his subjects, arranges for a suitable king to take over, and he goes to the forest. He does austerities, he does yogas, he chants Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And after some time, and Vidarbhi is taking nice care of him, providing whatever meals she can gather from the roots and the herbs in the nearby forest. Neither of them is wearing silken royal garb anymore. They're wearing bark of trees, and they have matted locks. They're sleeping on the ground, and all these austerities she's performing right along with him and getting purified. You can see that this has been a great opportunity for Vidarbhi to have been married to a Krishna conscious king, a great soul, in fact. One day, she's rubbing his feet while he's deep in meditation, and she feels that the feet have lost their heat, and she feels that they're going cold and non-responsive. She gradually dawns upon her alone, that she is alone. That a minute ago she felt comforted, consoled, and protected by the presence of her husband, and within a few minutes' time, that is no longer the case. From being with her husband, her life's companion, her guru, now the feet have gone cold, and she guesses that he's left his body, and she feels so desolate, so forsaken, so abandoned. What is this? This is the consciousness in which one can realize God. To feel oneself helpless without the assistance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is a prime qualification for being the recipient of God consciousness. So feeling very forlorn, helpless, as we should all feel. It's kind of ironic that we have to see death in the face. We have to experience death directly in order to think deeply about things. Death is always at our shoulder. We're like little mice running around with all of our self-importance and ego, plan-making business, just hovering over our shoulders, the black snake of death. And at his whim, he can pounce at any moment. Right in the middle. We can't protest. Well, can't you wait until I finish this plan? Can't you wait at least until I get back from the shopping trip to home? Blacksmith, when he desires, he will pounce. And you don't even have time to lean down and straighten your socks when it's time to go. But we go through life blithely, in denial of the precariousness of life, especially this human form of life. We put death aside. We never give it a thought, even though it is said there are only two things that are sure in life: taxes and death. We don't think about that which is sure and certain. It says, Jatasya hi dhruvo mitir dhruva janma tajmarapi nanam sojanam. Krishna tells his friend and our disciple Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita, it says that for one who has taken birth, death is 100% certain. So we should consider that, and we should make a plan how, having left this current body, we don't then again have to enter another body for another round of birth, death, disease, and old age. Now here she is, helpless, forlorn, and we're all like that. You know, we may think, well, I've got this wife, I've got 10 kids, I've got 20 grandchildren. Most people in Utah Valley have an amazing and an unbelievable number of grandchildren, great-grandchildren. They really plant dynasties in this particular area. But if you think that because you're surrounded by all these relatives, Deha Patra Kadadadashu Admasenashu, surrounded by all your soldiers, and that they will some or other protect you at the time of death, you're in a grand illusion. These soldiers themselves will die. They are fallible soldiers. The fallible soldiers cannot protect you from the infallible fact that you will die eventually. So one should always feel, even in the midst of family and friends, one should always feel that the responsibility for my own liberation, the responsibility for my own protection lies with me and nobody else. I shouldn't look to the right. I shouldn't look to the left. I shouldn't look to my grandparents or parents or mother or father or wife or children. Ultimately, none of them can give us protection because each and every one of them is themselves inside the jaw of death. So we need to look to that Supreme Personality of Godhead who created us, who loves us, who's our Supreme Father, and who is offering his protection free of charge. But because we have no faith, because we're blind to the fact of Atma Tattva, to the fact that inside this body is an eternal spirit soul, part and parcel of God, we don't see what is obvious. We're like the owl. The owl can only see at night. In the glare of the midday sun, the owl is totally blind. Aluka deke. So the materialistic person like Paranjana, it's like the owl. They can only see in the darkness in terms of family, friends, and temporary perishable goals and ambitions. In that which is obvious, they don't see. What is obvious is our own inevitable destruction and the inevitable destruction of our family members, none of whom can help us. Therefore, it's up to us to look to the Lord and to trust him and accept his offer of protection. Prabhupada gives the example in the air show. Some of you have been to an air show. The planes fly and sink. They're so amazingly coordinated. They'll be flying at 1,000 miles an hour, and the wingtip of one plane will be just inches from another. And you somehow or other think they're all just connected by some invisible membrane. But if one pilot gets into engine trouble, there's nothing he can do. There's nothing the other pilots can do to help him, to save him. He has got to fly his own plane. He has got to navigate his own course in such a way as to get to safety. So Krishna says, Suridam sarvabhutanam gatva mam santim nichiti. I am the well-wishing friend of all living beings. He is aham sarvasya prabhu. He is the source of all material and spiritual worlds. He's within every atom. He's within the hearts of every living being. Krishna, Krishna, Mahabaho, Bhaktanabhyayankara. In the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, he's called many-armed, unconquerable. Krishna can roll back death. He can roll back disease. He can roll back rebirth. He has many arms. Sarvadapadi Padam. His arms and legs are everywhere. He sees and hears everything. He's in complete control. Sarvendira Ganabhisham, Sarvendira Vibharjanam, Asaktis Sarvabhikjakta, Nirganam. He controls everything. Nothing happens without his sanction, and at the same time, he's not part of this material creation. So he offers us his protection as we navigate this very dangerous ocean of birth and death. And he also says that if we take advantage of his protection in this life, then he'll bring us back to him in the next life, back to Godhead. One poet said, long did I toil and found no earthly rest, far did I roam and found no certain home. At last I sought them in his Ram's sheltering breast, who opens his arms and bids the weary come. With Ram, or Krishna, Ram, I found a home, a rest divine, and I since them am Ram's, and Ram is mine. The good I have is from Ram's store supplied. The ill is only what Ram deems the best. With Ram as friend, I'm rich with nothing beside, and poor without Ram, though all possessed. Changes may come, I take or I resign, content while I am Ram's and Ram is mine. Changes may come, in Ram no change is seen. Ram is like a glorious sun that wanes not nor declines. He walks above the storms and clouds serene, and on his devotees inward darkness shines. While here, alas, I know but half Ram's love, but half discern him and but half adore. But when I meet Ram in the realms above, I hope to love him fully, praise him more, and show and tell amid the kirtans divine how fully I am his and he is mine. Actually, the word kirtan was not in the original version. I just added that. This is what we need to do. Sarvadharma, Krishna calls on us to surrender unto him fully, and he will protect us. So, going back to our story, here's Vidarbhi, alone in the forest, having lost her husband. She's building a funeral pyre to cremate his body, and she is going to, having lost her life, her love, her soulmate, she's going to ascend the funeral pyre and perish along with him. So who should come along in the middle of the forest but this Brahmin? And his name is Obliged, which means the unknown one. And we get this from the 52nd verse of the 20th chapter of the 4th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Katam kasyasi ko vayam sayano yasojashi Ganeshi kim sakyam mama. Sakyam means your old friend. Yanagari bichakar today. The Brahmin says, who are you? Whose wife and daughter are you? Who is this man lying here? It appears that you are lamenting for this dead body. Don't you recognize me? I am your eternal friend. Before you got married, before you got enamored of the opposite sex and committed to raising a family and pursuing domestic felicity, we were inseparable. We hung out together all the time. We were like this. Don't you remember me? No, you don't, because you got involved, you got absorbed in pumsam sriyamituni bhav metan tayo metodi yamagati hu. You got absorbed in family life. You got absorbed in that which is temporary. You don't remember all the times in the past that we talked about deeper, more meaningful things. Prabhupada says that when we lose someone close to us, someone with whom we have an intimate bodily connection, renunciation comes about. We think about vanity. Solomon in Ecclesiastes said, vanity, vanity, all is vanity. That means we work hard. Dharma sehipa vargasha narto rita narta shadama kama laba hishmitaha. We work hard for temporary fruits in this material world, and we achieve them. Antamanti medeha antamantu palam tesham tad bhavityopa medisham. But when we see someone passing away, being separated from all that they've accumulated during a lifetime of strenuous endeavor, it gives us pause. Why am I following in their footsteps? Everything they worked for, they are now ripped away from. The same thing that happened to them will happen to me. This is called the realizations, the meditations coming to you live from the crematorium. And when one is in such a receptive, forlorn, and contemplative mood, then they can begin to hear that small, quiet voice of the Supersoul from within their heart. He's always been there. He's always been advising them and talking to them. But we got so maddened, so intoxicated and infatuated by the curves and the smoothness of the opposite sex, and we wanted to dive into that. And that was a common pursuit with the animals. We decided to do the same thing that 8,400,000 species of animals do. And we know we got involved in that gross area of activity, and we could no longer hear the subtle, sublime voice of the Supersoul. But when loss occurs, when we lose our spouse, when we lose our mother, we lose our father, and we're at the funeral ceremony, we're at the crematorium, then we can begin to hear the voice of Obliged, our old friend, beginning to try to talk us through our present crisis, get us back on the terra firma of spiritual realization, and ultimately bring us back home, back to Godhead. But you can't do both. You can't be totally involved in domestic life at the same time have the awakening of spiritual life. Just the other day I was on the freeway, and there was some lady, she was getting onto the freeway. She was coming on the entrance lane, and I'm driving in the slow lane. and she just cut me off. She just didn't even look. She just drove right in front of me. I had to slam on my brakes to avoid her. I had the right of way. And when I look closely, she's got her cell phone to her ear. Hasn't got a clue. Driving 70 miles down the freeway, totally involved in whatever family affairs, trivial family affairs, relevant only to her, have no importance in my life or the lives of any of the other drivers in the freeway, and yet she's totally oblivious. She thinks this is the all in all. Whatever little crisis is going on right now with her kids, she's got to pick up the cell phone, put it to her ear at 75 miles an hour, and just put everybody else's life at risk on the freeway. That's a little vignette. That's a little scenario which illustrates the truth of this statement by Prabhupada that one can not take advantage of the instructions of the Super Soul while making one's own plans to become happy and entangling oneself in the modes of material nature. There are, as I mentioned, 8,400,000 species of life spread throughout the universe, and each and every one of these species of life is awarded to the living entity according to his or her material desires. The creation, when there's creation originally, it says in the 8th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Bhutta Grama Saeva Bhutpa Bhukra Ratamage Vasapartam Pradabhati Ahara Agame. Bhutpa Bhukra. This material manifestation is coming and going. As opposed to the spiritual world, Vyaktisariti Dashtamahu Param Yad Praptanarati Tadama. The spiritual world is always present. It's always manifest, it's never unmanifest. But this material world is sometimes manifest and sometimes it's not manifest. So when it's manifest, the living beings, according to the combination or proportions of their material desires, spring up in 8,400,000 species of life, and they do it not gradually, not in stages, as the evolutionists would have you believe, but creation or recreation, or let's say manifestation, happens more or less simultaneously. All those species of life are prearranged. They're already there. They're like on the shelves, waiting for souls to take the particular bodies according to the nature of their material desires at that present moment in time. So imagine all these bodies, 8,400,000 bodies, there's a manifestation, and spiritual souls are jumping into these bodies and resuming their activities from where they left off during a previous annihilation. Another divergence of the Vedic scriptures' version of creation from that of the evolutionists is the evolutionists would have us believe that creation starts from the bottom up, from some sort of primordial soup, from some sort of single-celled organism, somehow or other, against all experience, against all logic and reasoning, matter in its most primitive form starts to become conscious of itself. How does that happen? Starts to organize itself, takes itself from a lower level of organization to a higher level of organization. When have we ever seen anything like this in our experience? You take a room, close the windows, close the doors, lock it up, walk away, come back 6 months later. Is the room more clean or less clean? Has the room organized itself to a higher level, or has the room deteriorated in terms of dust and mothballs, musty smell and aromas and all? Left on its own, matter never goes from a lower state to a higher state. Left on its own, matter always devolves. Matter has weight. Matter is subject to gravity, deterioration, and so matter will always go from a higher state to a lower state. Therefore, creation begins not from the lowest point, begins from the highest point. Tene Brahma Vide Ya Ari Kabaya Myanti Surya Tejavari Minam Tatavianam. begins with Lord Brahma. The first living creature is not something that crawled out of the Black Lagoon. It's not the swamp creature. The first living being is the highly evolved, highly knowledgeable, highly cultured, highly sophisticated Lord Brahma. In fact, Lord Brahma his nature is so rarefied, he doesn't squirt out of a womb. He appears on a lotus flower. Therefore, he's called Atmabhu, self-born, self-manifest. He's so pious, so righteous, doesn't have to undergo 9 months in the womb. He appears out of a lotus flower. What a pleasant way to make your appearance. Ta-da! And embedded within Lord Brahma as a result of 1,000 years of austerities is the knowledge given to him by Krishna how to create the material world. So we also, when we fall as eternal spirits, Krishna conscious living beings, when we fall to this material world, we fall very high. We fall amongst Brahma and the demigods. Initially, upon our entrance into this material world, we're still very blessed in the material sense, with long life, with spiritual potency. And in fact, in the earlier ages of the cosmos, the Satyuga age, people lived for 100,000 years. There were no cities, there was no commerce, there was no pollution. Everything was pure and pristine. And when souls fell from the spiritual world, they pretty much had enough common sense to realize that they had fallen from a higher state of grace. And rather than getting absorbed in the place to which they'd fallen, they realized it's only temporary. It was a mistake. It was a wrong turn. And so throughout the entire creation of the world, at that time in the Satyuga, there were only ashrams, there were only yogis and penitents and philosophers, all of whom were trying to correct their wrong turn and get back home, back to Godhead. I remember this television commercial with Southwest Airlines. It was an Afro-American lady. She deplaned, apparently, and gotten something in her eye. So she walked into what she thought was the women's restroom. And she's there trying to get the thing out of her eye. And as her vision clears, she looks to the right and looks to the left. And there's a couple of men like, what are you doing in the men's room? And then the caption comes up on the screen, wouldn't you rather be somewhere else? So the souls that fell from the spiritual world fell to the level of demigods and yogis. They fell in Satyuga age. And they immediately said to themselves, wouldn't I really rather be someone else, somewhere else? Yes. And then they took the steps to reverse the trend and go back to home, back to Godhead. But eventually, one thing led to another. The nature of matter is to descend. So a number of souls didn't take the necessary steps as quickly as they should have taken, and they got enamored. It says, Dayato Vishampam Sam Sangate Sangat Sanje Kama Krota Bijayate. This material world is so insidiously entangling that you just look, and then your eyes find something pleasing to the sight. Your nose finds a pleasing aroma. You taste some good food, and before you know it, you're thinking, it's not so bad here. Let me see what I can do here. Let me see what kind of niche I can carve here. Let me see if I can find a suitable mate who will call my name and sing my glories. I heard a joke. It's not really a joke. It's just kind of one of those quippy things. That a dating couple, they are fiancés. They're walking along the beach, and the boy wanted to impress his fiancée, so he quoted some poetry, Wordsworth or Coleridge or something. And a line in the poem that he was trying to impress his fiancée with was, roll on, oh deep ocean. And then the girl says, John, look, it's actually doing it. He was trying to impress her, and she was flattering him to think that it was by his pronouncement that the waves were rolling on the ocean. And so that's Maya. That's Maya flattering you. And because of that flattery, you're thinking, well, why should I go back to the spiritual world? Everybody's chanting Krishna's name. I'll stay here. I like the sound of my name better than the name of Krishna's name. Like that. And what a price we pay. Ritu, Sarva Haras Jaham, birth, death, disease, and old age, poor Paranjana, dying, forlorn, invalid, his body destroyed, his city burned down, and thinking of his wife taking birth in his next as a wife, attending her husband during the time of his penances and austerities, having him leave his body with her forlorn and alone in the forest, and then, thank God, where would we be without our best well-wishing friend, the Super Soul? Into this desolation walks the Lord as a Brahmin, named Obliged, the unknown one, asking Vidarbhi to recall their intimate relationships which preceded her various domestic and material entanglements, to recall those conversations they had in days of yore, where they discussed the soul, the origin of the soul, the Supreme Soul, the service of the individual soul to the Supreme Soul. And we'll just finish with this wonderful verse, which will set the scene for tomorrow's discussion. This is the 60th verse in the 20th chapter of the 4th canto, where the Obliged says to the forlorn Vidarbhi in the depths of the forest, Nitvam Vidarbha Duhitam, Nayam Virya Saritava, no, wait, Hamsa Chamchachaya, Sakya Manusena, Adbhutam Antaravakya, Sahasra Parivartita, my dear gentle friend. Just see the graciousness, kindness, delicacy with which the Super Soul addresses his eternal dependent here. My dear gentle friend, both you and I are exactly like two swans. We live together in the same heart, which is just like the Manasa lake. Although we have been living together for many thousands of years, we are still far away from our original home. And then, a couple of verses later, Nitpam Vidarbha Duita, Nayam Virya Suri, Napatvistam Pananja, Rudho Navamakaya. You are not the daughter of Vidarbha, nor is this man Malyavaja, your husband, nor were you the actual husband of Paranjani. You were simply captivated in this body of 9 gates. Transcendental knowledge is now descending after considerable distractions, after considerable lapse of time, after a lot of water has flown under the bridge. But the good news is that although we forget the Lord, He never forgets us. We just have to come to that place in our lives where we realize that dependence upon, trust upon the fallible soldiers of friends, relatives, family, and country will not help us at the time of death. Only full surrender to the Super Soul, the Supreme Personality of God, that's our only option. That's our only shelter. Krishna further encourages in saying, don't hesitate, don't fear, I've got your back, I've got you in the palm of my hand, I got you this far, I will get you the rest of the way, back to home, back to Godhead. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Good note to end on as Lakshmi enters the picture here, having made, what did you cook for the deities this morning, Lakshmi?
Veggie burgers.
Burgers, huh?
Yeah. Veggie burgers. We have things growing in our garden, I'm sure as you do. And so we make an arugula salad, veggie burgers, and then maybe some nice soup for them.
Wonderful. Excellent.
I've been getting into making ladus for them. The old, chickpea flour ladus with walnuts and.
Yeah, they always taste a little bit like peanut butter ladus.
Yeah, exactly. We love them.
Any comments on our discussion?
Well, I kind of came in at the end, so.
Rob's been here the whole time. What say you?
Oh, good.
Are you there, Rob? Robert? Roberto? Rob?
How's he feeling?
I don't know. He might tell us now.
I have my son, so I haven't been as engaged as I would like, but I have enjoyed the conversation and discussion today, and I am feeling much better. Thank you very much, Lakshmi Prabhuji.
Oh, good. So good. Good news.
Your boy is with you now?
Yeah.
What's his name? I forget.
Kel, K-E-L-L.
J-E-L. Nice. Haribol, Kel, if you're out there.
Haribo.
Okay, Paul Kim, who is a volunteer, has been working very hard on a Patreon page. Repeatedly tells me to let you guys know we have a Patreon page. Many of you have been very generous in the past, and we're already sending you MP3s of the talks. We're posting edited versions on YouTube. Many of you were complimenting you with subscriptions to Back to Godhead magazine because of your past support and generosity. But in addition, we have another option as well, another facility. It's called Patreon. And we can send you even more goodies, including the transcripts of our motivational talks. We can offer a week free of charge in beautiful Spanish Fork, Utah, every year. Just look at the various tiers of benefits and see if any of that resonates with you. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it's patreon.com/Utah Krishnas. Check it out. Check it out. All right. Thanks very much, Hoot. Let me just, Maitreya Das, angry. I don't know why Maitreya Das might be angry in parentheses. Okay, there's some things going on that I'm not seeing here. I only see 4 comments. The rest sort of slipped down out of sight. But I will answer all of your comments. So please be prolific. Don't be constipated in adding your comments. We don't have Anjali with us the second day in a row, so the burden falls on all of us to pump them up here. We did pretty good yesterday. I think we had close to 100 comments. But when Anjali's on board, we get up to 160, 170. But thank you for joining us, Bhakti Gary. And we've also got, hold on a second, something's gotten in the way here. All right, here we are. Bhakti Gary, Eric Costin Silveira Borjas has joined us for the first time. Thank you. 23 mutual friends. Radhe Sham from Tooele. Thank you. Krishna Tone. I think that's Abhimanyu. I can't even begin to pronounce your first name, but your last name is Uzoma. Thank you very much, from Nigeria. I don't know what time it is. Type in the comments. Tell us what time it is in Nigeria. What day, for that matter. Onkar, Haribo, Onkar Prabhu. Anu Tyler Morris has been pretty regular this week, starting with the Zoom call last Sunday. Yodama, regular. Thank you so much, Yodama. Sundari Priya. It appears twice. Her and her expansion. Signa Priya and I have 129 mutual friends. And Signa Paki Misra, we have 360. Jimmy and Taruni, thank you. Walter, Chris Castro, Bobby, Ram Kishore, and Jean Eskelson. Thank you one and all for joining us on this Transcendental Tuesday. We will revisit for, the 9th time, finish up our discussion on this verse involving the deterioration of things in the Kali Yuga, the story of Paranjan, and the lessons that we can learn from it. Please take us away with your heavenly kirtan, Lakshmi.
Haribo.
Hari Hari Bo.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Gaura Premanandi Hari Hari
Hari Hari Bo. Hail Vishnu Paramahansa. Madhavakacharya Astate Shri Srimad Divine Grace.
Ese
Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada.
Ki Jai.
So thank you so much, Lakshmi, for jumping in at the end after having cooked veggie burgers for your deities. And, please join us one and all tomorrow for the grand finale. We will have spent almost 8 hours on this particular verse in the study of Paranjana and Vidarbi, and so don't miss, if you've been following it for the last 3 weeks, don't miss the stunning conclusion, the denouement, the last chapter in the story that Narada Muni tells King Prichinavarsha, all coming to you 7:30 tomorrow on Wisdom Wednesday from Spanish Fort, Utah. And also, don't forget we have our Patreon page up, also patreon.com/Utah Krishnas. Check it out. And thank you very much, one and all, for joining us. And don't forget, throughout the entirety of this day, chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Hare Hare
Hare Ram,
Hare Ram Hare Ram
Ram
Ram Ram
Hare Hare.